across the state of North Carolina, Tea Party speeches, and he's going to talk a little bit of history. He is he's a scholar. He's an OBGYN like Congressman Paul, and he's self-educated himself on the issues of the Federal Reserve and the Constitution like no one else that I've had the pleasure of hanging out with. So here he is, Dr. Greg Brannon.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Thank you, everybody, for coming. In the age of ultimate deceit, telling the truth will be considered a revolutionary act. That is today. What we need to understand is that all 10 of Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto are actually law on our land today. And yet we sit here fight for our constitutional rights. I'm going to discuss today a little bit on the first one, the abolition of private property, number 2, high progressive income tax, and number 5, a central bank. If this is the core education for a socialist communist state, why are they laws on our land today? And what's happened to our, I hate this word, congressional oversight. It's their responsibility. Hamilton used the term the trustees. An example I like to use was if I had a will and I made Chuck the trustee of my will and I died to take care of my 7 children and my wife, he must follow the plans that I enumerated for him. Not go buy a new Ferrari. Well, that's what they're doing every day with this digital money. And I'm not going to argue over the semantics of who prints it, how it goes. But we're going to go through what happens. So today we have to understand that year of 1913, the year federalism died in this country, the year that the accumulation of our wealth to allow the monopolies, the trust to stay and keep ahead of us, to keep us basically Plato's Republic, where you got the philosopher kings, the guardians, the auxiliary, to keep the producers in line, and we are the producers are interchangeable. That is not liberty. This country that was founded by our founders who fought and died for this was very simple. It's the first constitutional republic ever in the history of the world that put the individual superior to the collective. This collective of the individual is as un-American as anything. So what's going to do is they want to keep us completely ignorant to these facts. And Madison warned very clearly, knowledge will for every governor ignorance. So we, who are to be our own governors, must understand the power that knowledge gives. So let's go through a couple things here. The first thing, private property. Private property, you think of your income, your work, your labor. Our founders debated clearly would there ever be a direct income tax on somebody's labor? And the answer was not even no, just hell no, there's no way. Because what happens is in Jefferson's first inauguration, he said very clearly, you cannot take the bread out of the mouth of the laborer. There's just no way. So what is our income? That is our labor. That is our property. But they take it to manipulate what they want to do. Now, the next part is how do they do that? Well, a high progressive heavy income tax. Again, what I'm saying this, guys, is this is the first 2 things of Karl Marx's plan of a communist state, which he said had to be built on a capitalist state. And we sit here and we're arguing over how to divide up the plunder at these elections. The person who's sovereign is not the state or a government or a territory. As Madison clearly said, it's the individual. We have to understand, is our Declaration of Independence, paragraph 2, just fluff or is it real? Are we endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Because if it is, then the next sentence means, to secure those rights, men deriving just powers from the consent of the governed. That's us. So how in the world do they get away taking away our hard-earned money, our hard-earned labor? And we sit here and say it's okay. Unacceptable. Well, I know how now. Now because I am educated. Because of my ignorance before, the 5th plank of Karl Marx is a state-run central bank. There's no other way you could fund welfare state or warfare state without a fiat currency. There's no way it could be done. They knew that. That's why they did this. When you look at the history of that, how this all occurred, use the word conspiracy, I don't care, these are historical facts, who put this thing together. But the bottom line was this. In 1913, 71% of all banks were non-national. The guys in New York did not like that. Of that, 57% of all money in the banks were in those non-national banks. So how they could control what they want to control is they were losing their power. So that's what they got together very simply. They picked the word Federal Reserve on purpose to avoid the idea of a central bank. Now, when you look at the rule book, our founders were really clear. And this is interesting. It was a very point in the October debate when they asked Governor Romney, what, you want Congress to control the money? And he sort of laughed. They never asked Dr. Paul the question. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5 says Congress has the power to coin money. The very next clause says, and the power to punish those who counterfeit. Clause Section 1, Article 1, Section 10, in the first paragraph, it says the states can only produce tender that is gold and silver. So how are we here doing digital money now? How does this occur? Because we've lost ourselves. We, the people who are supposed to hold our representatives accountable, we have lost our way. Shame on us. Shame on me. So now we're in the position that we're understanding this kind of stuff because of things like Dr. Paul, with kind of this education of von Mises Institute, understand Tom Woods, Kevin Gutzman, these men and women who are intellectual giants who want to debate an open. All we want is an open debate out in private, in public, not in private anymore. So we're looking at these kind of decisions. Is where does or the power actually occur to keep our representatives in line? And we have the oath, the President, Article 2, and we have our House and Senate with Article 6 to uphold the Constitution. So where are our representatives? Why are they not auditing these things? Where are they? The problem is they don't have to worry about you and me. We don't have the bank accounts of other people to fund their election process. We must take the power back. And that's why Washington warned. He warned clearly the Constitution itself is not a self-enforcing document. He said, we the people are the true keepers of the Constitution. So if we understand that power who's sovereign, then we must have we must put men and women in the positions to actually, all we want them to do is honor their oath and do the rule of law. So we talk about the details of what they're doing here. I happen to be an OBGYN, so I'm going to veer off a little bit here, but I spend time reading the Patient Protection Act, the 3590. I read all those over a few months, through 2,400 pages, and I got done reading and said, what a waste of time. I can't see in Article 1, Section 8 where healthcare is. See, when we let them actually set the actual rules of engagement and how we're going to talk over what topics, that's why our state legislators are crucial in holding the federal government responsible to their actions, their enumerated functions. If they don't, we're going to get the position we're in. So when we hear that the state has no power over the federal government because of the supremacy clause, that's ignorance. That's ignorance. Our states were here 150 years before the federal government. Our states are actually the responsibility to interposition between us as individuals. They're not even sovereign. They get their power from us. That's federalism. That's the definition of dual sovereignty. That's the idea of all those structures are put together by our founders to do one thing, to articulate John Locke's theory of what a government